So I am a huge believer that you should buy whatever you want when it comes to your watch collection journey. But if there's one genre of watch that I think gets underserved by enthusiasts and not being acquired enough, it's dress watches. And why I believe that is the case is so many people love the idea of a dive watch, or they love the idea of other sports watches that are so capable with water resistance. But if you get down to the concept of why we wear watches, it's really around expressing yourself. They're not necessarily used as tools as much as we like them to believe nowadays. And I think if you're trying to express yourself, find situations that are gonna be more likely to happen. Is the extreme of 300 meters of water resistance or having something that just looks nice and is more elegant going to be a scenario that more often is going to happen to you? So in this video, we're gonna be looking at dress watches that can actually be suitable for those that maybe don't like dress watches. So what I'm looking at here are ones that meet a nice middle ground, can be worn in a variety of situations, also aren't going to be so tied up in traditional ideas so much that they get away from being able to work for a variety of risks out there, maybe have some subtle style cues that allow them to be a great entry point for those that are not about this subject of dress watches altogether. And as a final point I'll just mention here, I don't think you need a suit and tie type of attire on a day-to-day basis to pull off a dress watch. You can do it just the same way that you don't need to have a diving suit to go ahead and wear a dive watch. But for some reason, we like to think one is more viable than the other. Now, before we jump in here, I'm really excited to announce something. We have just launched Seiko Luxe on our site and at our boutique in Cleveland, Ohio. So you might be thinking, Seiko, you've had Seiko for a long time, Teddy. What are you talking about? Well, Seiko Luxe is a different animal. It's actually a higher, more premium product offering compared to the entry-level Seiko models like the Seiko 5, some of the entry-level Prospect series and Presage. It is a little confusing. I have a video talking about the tiers of Seiko, but very excited to have these now available. I'll go through some of my favorite picks. We have dozens of different models on our site. So this is going to be where you see higher grade movements. You're going to see King Seikos and a lot more. One I'll call out is the SPB 117. This is an Alpinist. Imagine the green dial Alpinist of the SPB 121, similar price, but get a blacked out version with the dial that probably is gonna be even more versatile. Then you have the modern twist on the 62 Moss with the SPB 143. Love these models. These are best sellers for the brand. Great wearability across the board. And then you also have special edition blue version for the US market, the SPB 419. And since we're talking about dress watches that I think could be viable for a lot of different situations, let's talk about one here that I think is a great choice. That's the SPB 467. I love this classic Presage series. This is just under $1,000, and what you're getting is a fine link bracelet, 40mm case, beautiful just texturized pattern on this dial, sharply cut markers, and getting 100 meters of water resistance. And then one final watch I'll mention is the SPB 115. Nobody ever talks about this watch. This has just been one that I've always liked. It's one of the most attainable enameled dials in watchmaking. It's just over $1,000. You're getting around a 39mm case with this rich dark brown dial with high contrast white markings and hands. If you want to check all of these different watches out and a lot more, link will be in the description down below. So now for this first watch here, this is a watch family that I personally love. If you followed this channel for years, you understand that I have a lot of affinity to this design because it was one of the contributing watches that allowed me to get deeper into this hobby. And I think the idea and how it's able to walk this line of dress while also not fitting the ideas of typical watches of this genre is why it resonated with me. And it's a watch that in those early days, I got so many compliments for it. It was probably the most complimented watch that I ever had. When you're looking at this price range, and for somebody that's not into watches, it just speaks that language. I'm talking about the Junghans Max Bill. So that was a bit of a preamble for a watch introduction, but I think it's well worth it. This is a design that I have always loved. The history behind this piece is so cool, and the way it's able to present itself in this distinct pocket in the industry and not really have any peer that is exactly like it, especially when you factor in the history to match it, it allows it to really be this perfect gateway if you are maybe on the fence about getting into the world of dress watch design, or if you don't maybe like the traditional ideas of dress watch design. So this is more of this mid-century approach to dress watchmaking. You have a 38mm size for the case, thickness of 9.8mm, and a lug-to-lug of 40mm. So really strange dimensions. To understand this watch, you also have to understand the original history of where it came from. So this comes from a designer, Max Bill. He's a Swiss designer. He was a graduate of the Bauhaus School of Design in its short run of operation for less than 15 years. And then in the mid-20th century, he became a leader and educator of the principles he learned at the school. Around 1956, he was requested to build a kitchen wall clock with a timer. This is mid-century modern type of stuff that all the kids nowadays really like, but it was a classic and still has a lot of acclaim within industrial design circles to this very moment. But then in the 1960s, as a follow-up, we saw the design, the Max Bill wristwatch. It had some of the similar principles that you saw from a wall clock and adopting that into a singular wristwatch. You had a bulbous profile with the side case. You had a dial that was curved at the perimeter to mirror the dome of the crystal. You have these thin yet legible numerals that are so distinct and easy to read. I think a lot of times when you think of thin numerals, it's all about size, being bold, and how you're able to create visual perception so you're able to see. But this is something that's a little different way of pulling this off with a distinct look. The Max Bill design has evolved over the years. You have the chronoscope version and other models in the lineup, but one of my favorite choices, and for somebody that's looking for a different spin on the dress watch design from a different period of watchmaking and a different inspiration and design philosophy, that's where the Max Bill, I think, comes in and shines. So now we jump back to Seiko. This is going to be the Presage family, the entry point to the brand in the Presage family. This is the cocktail time, or at least one of the entry points. Now you have different case diameters for the cocktail time family. The ones that we're gonna be looking at here are the more traditional sizes, the 40.5mm diameter, but you do have 38.5mm versions as well, just as something to throw out there. Thickness of 11.8mm, lug to lug of 47.6mm, so not a small watch. And why are these watches gonna be considered on this list? I think it's just the idea and inspiration that come from these watches. Because of the way they have all these different colorways, they're not afraid to be expressive. And given the prices under $500, there's a lot of fun to be had here. These were launched in 2010, and the direct inspiration comes from Shibuya, Tokyo, from a mixologist that was making some of these very specialized cocktails, and all the different dial colors and the setups for these designs were built around those ideas. You have a traditional look for most of them with this rib finished dial that just looks extraordinary for the price. Gorgeous in its details. You have different colors. The prices are going to be all around that $500, if not less range. On the inside are the 4R series of movements. So these were upgraded with hacking and hand winding. And another reason why I like these watches is you don't have to spend a ton of money to sample out whether or not this whole identity around dress watches can work for you. Now we move to a sleeper in the collection for Tudor. I talk about this watch a lot, but not many other people talk about this watch, and probably rightfully so in some ways, because it's not gonna be the same, sexy appeal that so many of the Black Bays bring forth, the Pelagos brings forth. But if you're looking for that hybridization of dress and casual, it's a great watch. This is the 1926. And if I'm not mistaken, it still is the entry point for getting into a watch from Tudor nowadays. So these were released in 2018 and serve as that entry point into the contemporary collection. You have an excellent bracelet as part of the package. These are basically a dressier version, more looking back to the early 20th century in watch design. The 1926 is the year in which Hans Wilsdorf registered the Tudor name. You get 100 meters of water resistance as part of the package. Many different dial options to choose from, diameters to choose from. You have a 28mm option, a 36, a 39, and a 41mm. Now, why are these the least expensive mechanical Tudor watches out there? You have Sellita-based calibers on the inside, and this is just one of a few watches left that are using these movements. Most of the watches from Tudor are gonna be using the MT Canisi calibers. So now we shift to a watch that I have on my wrist right now. It's in that $2,000 to $3,000 price range as well, and it's from the Sector dial family. This is the Longines Heritage Classic Sector dial. Why I thought a Sector dial made a ton of sense is just the way that it's able to create this casual viability to a romantically traditional package. You put this watch on, it has like the Calatrava like old school case, maybe like an old school Patek Philippe beads of rice bracelet. On this version, there's a black dial, a silver dial to choose from, but the bold Sector dial design with the concentric pattern, the crosshair pattern as well, no date, you have the small seconds display. It's clean, but it has supreme legibility, and there are some thoughtful types of tool-forward ideas around its design while fusing some of these classical touches. Great wearability across. You have proportional dimensions in a nice case design that's brushed all throughout, except the case back, which will have the Ernest Francilian little winged hourglass logo right there. You have an exclusive ETA caliber on the inside. So basically what Longines is able to do is get parts and components from ETA that are proprietary for the Swatch Group, and then are able to assemble them fully in Saint-Émilion in Switzerland. The caliber here has 72 hours of power reserve. You have that box section sapphire crystal, very comfortable beads of rice bracelet. I don't know why they don't offer up the silver version with the bracelet. It really is an amazing combination. And yes, it only has 30 meters of water resistance, but this is a dress watch that you can absolutely wear every single day. So I think German watchmaking in general really nails this whole idea that we're going for a video like this. And a brand that was also responsible for helping me get deeper into watch collecting is Nomos. And here we have the Nomos Tangente. This is the Neomatic Platinum Gray version, the reference 189. So there are a variety of Tangentas that you can look at here. And the Tangenta is a watch that has been important for Nomos all the way back to the early 1990s. So Nomos, in their in-house ability and what they've been able to build in 35 years since the brand was founded in 1990 is simply incredible. If you are looking at $1,000 to $5,000, I think Glashutte watchmaking, if you care about true craftsmanship and understanding what in-house capability is, I know we throw around that word and phrase so easy nowadays to basically any brand that throws it out and says manufacturer, but this is a true manufacturer we're talking about here with Nomos Glashutte. 1992, they released 4 watches to the public. One was the Orion, it's a watch I personally own. You had the Ludwig, the Tetra, which is their really distinct square case version, and then the Tangenta. Tangenta has been a bestseller for the brand for years. Now Glashutte, and just to have Glashutte on your dial, there are certain requirements that come with that, and it's pretty strict ones at that. You need to have at least 50% of the value of the movement being produced in Glashutte. Like, this isn't just in Germany, this is in Glashutte, which is a small little town, and Nomos is doing that at 95%, so nearly doubling the standard that's being called upon. Now, the style of this watch might not be for you, but I think one thing that needs to be separated from style is the idea that design is an objective reality. And Nomos, they're exceptional designers. There's no question about it. On the inside, you have the in-house automatic DUW 3001. Given that this is a Neomatic movement, you can go for the alpha manual Tangentas, which are going to be less expensive. But I think from a manufacturing standpoint, these are really impressive. You're looking at 3.2 millimeters in movement height for this 3001. The finishing is phenomenal for the price point, and you're also getting their own proprietary escapement. And yes, they are making the escapement. This is known as their swing system. Escapements are commonly outsourced by brands, and Nomos has a variety of different sites in Glashutte. They have in the train station as their corporate offices. They have a watchmaking atelier, and where they make all the parts is in a place called Schlattwitz, which is very close. It's in Glashutte proper, but they're making all of the small componentry there, and that is where it goes to the atelier with the kits, and they're able to do the final assembly and some of the regulation as well. Another watch that is just over $1,000 that I think deserves a mention here is Frederique Constant. This is the Classics Index. Now, the Classics series does have a few different flavors that you can look at. You can look at the Premier, but that feels a little bit too traditional and having this guilloche style pattern at the center. This is more of a contemporary twist on a dress watch. For these watches, you're getting a 40 millimeter case in diameter, thickness of 10.5 millimeters, and a lug to lug pretty reasonable, 46.5 millimeters for that 40 millimeter diameter. Water resistance is 50 meters. You're also getting lume with this package. So some of the characteristics, features here do allow this watch to shift away from the traditional ideas that we consider when looking at a dress watch. Ultra clean design with an assertive wrist presence, despite not overstepping in that regard. The white dial goes with just about anything. There is a black dial version to look at as well. Dial is very uncluttered. You have a date at 3, applied indices, and even that touch of lume, which I think is a nice little value add for a dress watch for those that are afraid to take this plunge. Modified alpha style hands as part of the package, and then a blued second hand on top. So So when you think of a GMT watch, you probably think of something with an external rotating bezel, and you have a certain DNA that you are imagining when you close your eyes, maybe something that's going along the lines of the GMT Master 2 that was leading the charge in that whole idea. But what about a dress watch take? I would say this is probably one of the best ways of pulling this off and sticking the landing. This is the Grand Seiko SBGM 221. This, along with the Snowflake and the SBGA 413, the Cherry Blossom, are the three best sellers for Grand Seiko as I currently understand it. That is certainly the case for us. These watches are phenomenal. Sometimes people call these the Otani, which I can get behind that nickname, no doubt about it. In terms of some of the specs here, you're looking at 39.5 millimeters for the diameter, 13.7 millimeters thick, so a little bit on the thicker side, 46.9 millimeters for the lug-to-lug, and water resistance of 30 meters. That's probably the main downside of having this more dress approach. But the movement on the inside is the automatic GS9S66, and that is a true GMT movement. You're right around $5,000 now at the time of recording this video. With all the price changes happening because of the tariff situation, things are moving, but at this time, right around $5,000. But I love the combination of shifting the way that we think about a GMT and adding it to a more unique execution with more elegant aesthetics. You have that inner GMT scale, which is also something you typically don't see. It's not on a bezel. You have a traditional stainless steel bezel, and on the inside is really where you're presenting those numerals. And how it's being showcased is that tempered blue GMT hand off of that ivory dial. And one of the real reasons I think people love this dial is the combination. You have the warm, milky richness of the ivory, but then you have the touch of blue, but also just the reflective nature of those hour indications. One thing that Grand Seiko does so well is with the dial markers, and this is basically allowing them to create this great contrast and visual effect without having to add lume or some type of more dressed down version of their markers. They are putting these on a drum tool and they're rotating them, and an artisan is lining up each one of those facets and to make sure that they have the perfect mirror polish on them. And they're gonna look at every single one under a magnifier to ensure that they're passing the strict standards. For that 9S66 movement, you have local adjusted hour hand that can be isolated and a 3-day power reserve to go along with it. So I have a review coming out about the Rolex Datejust. I think that watch is so well regarded that it feels a little too obvious for a list like this, because I think most people have considered that watch if they are maybe trying to get into the world of dress watches. And I don't know if that's the perfect representation for someone that's maybe on the fence. I want something that's maybe a little bit different, has some different characteristics, and also is not going to be as obvious as a choice. And for that, we're gonna look here at a good alternative to the Datejust. This is the Omega Constellation Globemaster. Now, this design takes a lot of the former DNA of previous Globemasters. You have the Pie-Pan dial, you have the fluted bezel that was part of the C-Case constellations from back in the day, and also this pursuit of chronometry. Now, this was unveiled in tandem with the Master Chronometer certification in 2015. You're getting a 39 millimeter case, thickness of 12.6 millimeters, not the thinnest watch out there, especially for this dress family. 46.7 millimeters for the lug-to-lug, but it will wear larger than that. I'd say this wears like a 40 to 40 and a half on wrist. I personally own one of these as well, so I really just do enjoy it. It has 100 meters of water resistance despite only having a push-pull crown, and then the automatic 8900 movement on the inside, which is a phenomenal movement. And it was the first caliber that, yes, is going to be tested for COSC first, and then put in the case, and then tested for its Master Chronometer certification with those fully cased up tests. But one of my favorite aspects of this watch is the fluted bezel design. When you see fluted bezels, usually it's going to be very finely finished. You have these reflective nature, and it's gonna come with usually a softer metal. This comes as a fluted tungsten carbide bezel, which basically is going to be scratch proof. Now, I can't say that fully. It's going to be very scratch resistant. Only certain diamond cutting type of tools and things of that level of hardness are going to be able to scratch this. And considering how hard it is and difficult it is to work with and polish, you have to use very specific tools to be able to get this reflective end result. They've been able to create with a very durable material a look as if it was made from a precious metal. Now, JLC is a brand that so many people just put in a box because they suspect everything to be overly elegant. And when you have a watch like the Reverso, which yes, it was a sports watch, but nowadays it's commonly regarded as a dress piece. So what is a watch from the brand that maybe you can consider here? And I do think we sell them short on their other potential capabilities with things like the Polaris and others of that sort. But today we're looking at the JLC Master Control series, the Master Control date. So in 1992, the Master Control was released. Now the point of this family was to balance elegance with versatility to more casual approaches. And that's really what these watches represent to this point. How can you get dressier types of styles while not going too far in that direction? Now the date is going to be the entry point to the Master Control. There are also the Master Ultra Thin, but those by default are going to appeal more to those dressy undertones. This is a nice middle ground. This comes with a 40mm case, 8.78mm in thickness, and a lug-to-lug of 47mm. You are getting 50 meters of water resistance, so an adequate amount there, and the caliber 899 on the inside. With the package, you get solid wrist presence, this classic uncluttered dial design, applied indices, and then incremental changes to the movement on the inside have also been made. If you don't recall, there was a few years ago where many of the JLC calibers were in that 40+ hour power reserve range, and a lot of others in their class were closer to 70 hours. They have now redesigned the barrel, so these are now going to offer 70 hours of power reserve with these movement upgrades. Movement decoration is pretty gorgeous for this price range as well. The 899 is no exception of that. You have the Geneva striping, we have perlage, a rose gold rotor with skeletonized logo, and heat blued screws. If you've not checked out my manufacturer visit of JLC, it is absolutely crucial viewing. If you have any relative interest in this brand, I think you'll come away with a lot more appreciation of what they are able and capable of. And then if you want to add on top of the Master Control series, there are different versions to look at, and I think they're able to integrate a lot of these designs very seamlessly. So you have the Memovox with its mechanical alarm, and then you also have the Geographic, which adds a 12-hour display, an AM/PM indicator, power reserve, subsidiary date with those radial set numerals. Now we jump back to Glashutte, Germany. We're looking at two neighbors here. I'll start with one of them and then we'll shift to the other. First is going to be Glashutte Regional with the Panamatic Lunar. You could also mention the Senator here, but I am partial to the Panamatic Lunar. I love these watches. I personally own one, so I'm going to give that one the slight edge here, but you could look at both of these, and some might even say the Senator is a bit more distinct for their own DNA. But what I want to really bring forth here is this concept of having all of the displayed information all over the dial, where the conventional idea with the 12 hours being at the center stack and having all of these other positioned complications across the dial being in these different areas, I think it allows it to not feel as if it's being so stereotypical dress watch. But 40mm case, thickness of 12.7mm, so a little bit thicker, but still going to wear thin enough for sliding underneath the dress cuff. You have 47mm for the lug-to-lug, water resistance as mentioned at 50 meters, and an automatic caliber, the 9002 on the inside. And the caliber is really where this watch shines, apart from the layout of the setup of that dial and all the different complications. You also have a skeletonized Glashutte striped rotor with an oscillating weight in 21 karat gold. But I think the star of that show is going to be that butterfly balance bridge. It's going to have hand engraving on both sides. You have swan neck regulation as well. And the engraving is absolutely spectacular. And for $11,000 to $12,000, depending on the strap or bracelet option you go for, simply phenomenal value for money in getting this artisanal watchmaking at this price. Now the other watch we're gonna look at here is from Lange. This is the 1815. So here's the funny thing about the 1815. It's a watch that was brought out in 1995. This was a year after Lange released those 4 icons that launched the brand. This is in reference to Ferdinand Adolf Lange's birth year. So what's funny about all this is it's actually appealing to 19th century watchmaking, but here I am in a video in 2025 talking about how this design can still be appealing to those that maybe don't even like dress watches. I mean, does it get more classic and timeless when you're trying to appeal to 19th century? Probably not, but for some reason it still works and fits this idea that we're going forth in this video. Now for this version we're looking at is going to be the 38.5mm case size. This comes with a thickness of 8.8mm, lug to lug of 45.3mm, and water resistance of 30 meters. And then on the inside, the L051.1. Now, the 1815 series has several style traits that are rather consistent. You have those bold hour numerals, you have the railway outboard minute track, alpha hands being carefully finished, with some of them being heat blued, adding pop to certain versions of these dials. Another thing I really appreciate about Lange is how seamless complications can be added, especially chronographs. 1815 chronograph is simply beautiful and one of the best chronographs in the world, in my opinion. The movements are some of the best finish for a serial produced watch out there. You have the Glashutte stripes on the 3/4 plate, perlage, black polishing, gold chatons, and hand engraving. And just as an idea of showing the precision and almost perfection that is being pursued by Lange in their watches and representing Glashutte, Lange movements are going to be assembled twice. So the reason why I also did not include the Datejust on this list is because I think this watch represents the idea to a great degree for Rolex, and it's one that maybe isn't a fan favorite yet, but I am starting to like it a lot more as the years have gone on. And it's only been 2 years since its initial release. This is the Rolex 1908. But I'll tell you what happened this year that allowed this watch to really click for me. It's that Settimo bracelet. So that's Italian for 7. So you can imagine 7 links here for this bracelet design. And I think the reason why this watch clicks so well with the bracelet is just you understand the Rolex buyer. And I think if you're somebody that wants to buy a Rolex, putting it on a strap sometimes just doesn't feel right, especially for like precious metal. When I think of precious metal Rolex, part of the idea is that the bracelet is also in precious metals. And so to see this more elegant take on a bracelet design from the brand, even more so than a Jubilee, but still have that level of flair that I think somebody that's buying a Rolex is looking for without being so overly ostentatious, this is a great middle ground. Now you have a 39mm diameter, you have a thickness of 9.5mm, and a lug-to-lug of 47mm with water resistance of 50 meters. The movement is the 7140 on the inside. A couple things to call out about the 7140 is going to be the fact that it actually uses a Siloxy hairspring, and that was something that was done before we saw that with the Land Dweller, but a precursor to some of the development and things that were happening in-house at Rolex. The yellow gold for the case and bracelet is from Rolex's own foundry, and with that 7140 movement, you're getting great accuracy. This is a superlative chronometer. -2 to +2 seconds a day. You have the enameled small seconds dial with the applied gold indices, and that oversized Breguet S style hour hand with a lot of flutes on the outside of that bezel, 180 to be exact. So I was on the ground in 2022 when Patek released this watch, and it's not your conventional Calatrava. I love the shift in what they've been able to present here with this watch. This is the 5226G-001. Now, a few things to call out here for just general specifications. You have a diameter of 40mm, thickness of 8.53mm, and a lug-to-lug of 47.7mm. Water resistance is 30 meters. We won't talk about water resistance from Patek Philippe because it's always a loaded subject because of what they've done recently with changing some of the specifications. And then on the inside is the automatic 26-330 SC. So as mentioned, this watch came out in 2022 at Watches and Wonders. And what I loved about it was it took the Calatrava and what it represents on a more classic form and then shifted it to look almost like a contemporary field watch. Some of that comes from the numerals. You have this grain pattern with the dial. Also, the white gold case gives this less flashy than yellow or rose gold appearance. You have a fantastic Clos de Paris hobnail texture pattern on the case side, so it's not fully abandoning the idea of the Calatrava. The caliber on the inside offers a refined finish. You have striping, perlage, engraving, beveling, and a solid gold rotor. And now for the final watch on this list, we have one of my favorite watches, and this is a brand in general that I think represents this concept well. You can wear these. Yes, they have more classic ideas, very romantic themes that are going to be throughout their design and inspiration mechanically as well, but you can wear these watches every single day. This is the FP Journe Chronomètre Souverain. Now the CS was first unveiled in 2005, and it really serves as one of the emblematic symbols for FP Journe. If you've ever gone to one of their boutiques, you'll see the clock and you'll see some of the imagery of the Chronomètre Souverain and how it's set up with its dial. It's always going to be a watch that's going to represent this simplicity and approach to what the brand is all about and what Francois Paul is all about. Now my favorite standard production model from the Chronomètre Souverain was a 2017 release, the Havana version. Now this model comes with a warm tobacco brown color, the result of several months according to Journe, and is done in their dial making factory in Switzerland. The hands and dial printing are in this soft ivory for a less formal look, and then you also have a relatively simple layout for Journe. You have the small seconds and the power reserve indication as well. And the location of that power reserve was a troubling one. Now, Francois Paul loved the location of the power reserve at 3, but if you know what's going on underneath with the keyless works, this created some challenge in being able to have enough room to be able to showcase it. In a discussion I had with Laurent, the brother of Francois Paul, this was something he brought up as a conundrum for Francois Paul in its initial design, but I'm very happy he was able to pull it off. You have a slim case profile under 9mm. The modern Chronomet Souverain is going to probably be best represented at the 40mm case size. And then you have the 1304 movement on the inside. This is going to come in fully executed gold as the primary material. Twin barrel for more constant power delivery over the length of the reserve for a floating escapement, which basically is only going to have the balance, and then you have the escapement wheel with the pallet fork being able to be showcased. Everything else from the gear train is on the reverse side. It's hidden on the reverse of the main plate, hidden beneath the main plate and the dial. But all right, guys, that's my video here today, looking at some dress watches for those that maybe don't like dress watches. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, hit the bell icon. I really do love dress watches, and I think not enough people give them a chance. I think they just write them off too quickly because they think, oh, dress watch, I don't wear a suit, I'm not that guy. We are complex creatures. We have many aspects of our identity that we showcase throughout our day-to-day lives. So it's okay to wear a dress watch here and there. And I think more people should give it a shot, and they're far more versatile than probably most people suspect. Also, definitely check out teddyballastar.com, full authorized dealer for all the brands that we carry. Every purchase comes with quick and fast fulfillment, dedicated customer support, and a full factory warranty for all the products that we offer. In addition to that, if you're ever in the Cleveland, Ohio area and are looking for a watch, please stop in our boutique. We'd absolutely love to help you out, whether online or in store. Allows us to keep doing what we're doing here, and we love what we do. But guys, thank you again so much for watching. Be well, and I will see you all very soon.